Hello chess enthusiasts, my name is Miha and welcome to my chessrealm YouTube channel. So maybe you have heard for the Dubai Police Global Chess Challenge, which recently ended. Indian Grandmaster Pranav V won, by the way, but I want to show you an interesting game between Indian Grandmaster Aditya Mittal and International Master Rathanvel. Let's see what happened in the game. Aditya Mittal had white pieces and he started with e4, c5, knight to f3, d6, d4, c captures on d4, knight recaptures on d4, knight to f6, knight to c3, and now a6, and we have neither variation of Sicilian defense, and now white plays bishop to g5, a very sharp move, so we are expecting an interesting game. Black continues with e6, according to the theory, and now queen goes to f3, and black continues with h6, attacking the bishop, forcing white to decide what to do with the bishop. Well, bishop goes back to e3, and now e5, attacking the knight. Knight goes back to b3, bishop goes to e7, and now h3, preventing any unpleasant bishop to g4 or whatever. And black responded with b5, preparing b4, harassing knight on c3. So a3 was played, preventing b4. Black continues with bishop to e6, white castles queen side, and now knight from b goes to d7. So both sides are almost done with development, and now white plays knight to d5, attacking the defender of this pawn on d6. Now this pawn on d6 is weak, so here in positions of this kind, black usually captures knight on d5. But black has other plans. Rook goes to c8, bishop goes to d3, g6, g4, and now black finally captures knight on d5 with bishop. E-pawn recaptures, and now queen goes to c7. So black is eyeing on the white king. White has to be careful and protect c2 pawn at all cost. h4 was played. White continues with action on the king side, and black responds with knight to b6 with action on the queen side, and also double attack on this pawn on d5. There's no point in defending with, for example, bishop to e4, because black simply captures with knight. As stated before, bishop has to protect this c2 pawn. So in the game, h5 was played. Double attack on this pawn on g6. Well, g5 blocking king side is one of the options, but black has decided to capture the pawn. So g-pawn captures on h5. f5 square is no longer protected, so instead of grabbing h-pawn, white plays bishop to f5, trying to remove the rook from the c-file. But black doesn't care and captures yet another pawn on g4. Pawn is protected by the knight, so queen cannot recapture it. And as stated before, bishop, of course, has to protect the c2 pawn, so also cannot capture on g4. So white plays queen goes to g2. Now rook goes to b8. And now white grabs the pawn on h6 with bishop. And black grabs the pawn on d5 with knight from b6. Okay, so white is 2 pawns down but has a bishop pair, and black king didn't castle yet, so white has a lot of options for counterplay. Bishop to d2 was played. White is offering the trade of rooks. Well, there wouldn't be anything wrong with rook captures on h1, but maybe black didn't like rook recapturing and then harass black king on the last rank, although this would have been easily defended. Anyway, rook to g8 was played, further defending this pawn on g4. King goes to b1, out of the c-file. Now here black had a lot of nice continuations at his disposal, for example b4. After b4, if white captures, opens additional files. And if a4, then queen to c6, grabbing this pawn on a4, also very nice continuation. But black has decided to drive away this bishop on f5. So bishop to f8 was played, rook from h goes to e1, and now knight goes to e7, attacking bishop on f5. Bishop goes back to d3, and now queen to b7. Offering the trade of queens. Naturally black is 2 pawns up and wants to trade the most dangerous piece. White naturally doesn't go for it. Queen to h2 was played. Rook goes to c8, and now knight to a5, attacking the queen. White has a simple plan of pushing this c pawn, opening more diagonals for his bishop pair. So black responds with queen to f3. c4 is no longer possible because then a bishop on d3 would not be protected. Instead, a4 was played. Double attack on this pawn on b5. Black captures on a4. Bishop recaptures pawn on a6, attacking the rook. Rook goes to b8. X-rank king on b1. a3 is also the threat because b pawn is pinned. And now white responds with knight to c4. But not to prevent this a3 pawn push, but to attack this pawn on d6, the only defender of pawn on e5. Well, let's see. If black would try with a3, then of course knight cannot capture. After knight captures on a3, queen recaptures on a3. Pawn cannot capture because of the pin. So instead, white in this position would capture pawn on d6 with check. Now black king would have two options. Let's say if king goes to d7, then knight to c4. Knight to e5 is coming, forking both king and the queen, which happens also in the case if king is on c6. After king to e6, then queen to e5 mates in a couple of moves. And after king to c7, then bishop to a5, check, king to c6, knight to e5, king to c5 is the only move, knight to d7, check, knight captures on d7, and queen to d6 is checkmate. And now let's see what happens if after knight to d6, king would go to d8. Well, then simply bishop to a5, check, king to d7, knight to c4, and the rest is the same as shown before. Okay, let's go back to our game. So black definitely has to protect this pawn on d6. And he should have done that by playing knight to e4. Now I cannot go any further through some variations as the position is very double-edged. Still, this move would give black a hope to survive an attack. In the game, however, black plays knight to g6. Pawn on d6 is protected, that's true, but now white strikes with a spectacular move. Knight captures pawn on e5, attacking the queen, also preparing this cover attack. So black more or less has no other options but to capture. So d pawn captures on e5. Black is hoping to gain a piece, but now another stunning move. Rook captures pawn on e5. So after a knight, also a rook sack. Well, here black has a few options. Now king to d8 leads to bishop to a5 mate in 1. King to d7 is somewhat better. Still, bishop to e2, attacking the queen is a fatal blow. Let's see, after, for example, queen to b7, threatening mate in 1, then bishop to b4, discover check. Again, black king has a few options. After king to c6, then rook to e6, check. King cannot go anywhere, so f-pawn has to capture rook on e6. And then rook to d6, check. King can only go to c7, and then bishop to a5, check. And here black has to block the check with queen, losing decisive material. because if king goes to c8, then rook to d8 is checkmate. And if, for example, king would go to c7 immediately, we have mate in 4, bishop to a5 check. If king to c8, then rook to d8 is checkmate. If king to c6, queen to g2 check. Of course, black can delay the mate with knight to e4, but then queen to e4 is checkmate. Okay, bad, but here, let's see, after queen to b6 blocking the check, then of course rook to e7 is double check. King would have to go to c8, and then, for example, queen to c7, and rook to c7 is checkmate. Okay, let's go back to our game. So in the game, black has decided to block the check with bishop. And here you can guess what happened now. Rook tries again to sacrifice itself, so rook captures bishop on e7, it's check. And rook on b8 is also under attack. So king more or less has to capture rook on e7, which is what happened in the game. Rooks are also connected now, but that doesn't help black a lot. Queen goes to c7 check. Now going back to the last rank is not the best option, because rook would not be connected anymore, and rook on b8 would be for free. Well, for example, king to f8, then bishop to h6 check, rook to g7 defending, queen captures rook on b8 check, knight goes to e8 defending. Material is equal, but now rook to d8, double attack on the knight. Queen to e4 defending doesn't help, then bishop to b5, and black loses decisive material. Okay, so in the game, king goes to e6, rook goes to e1 check, and here black should go with king to f4. It's true that after king to f4, then bishop to d3, king cannot go anywhere and has to give up the queen. And black would have a rook and a piece for a queen. Still in this position, it would probably not be enough, and white would probably win. But in the game, black has decided to lose instantly. Knight to e4 was played, blocking the check, but now bishop to c4 check. King can go to f6 or f5, doesn't matter. King to f5 was played, queen to f7 check. King can only go to e5, but then queen to e6, king to d4 check, and king to d4 and queen to d5. It would be checkmate, and therefore, in this position, black resigned the game. So I hope you like this game, I hope you have learned something from it. If you have any questions, my email is below in the description. Of course, I invite you to visit my Instagram page. That's it for now, and see you soon.